Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Rexfield Investigates, where we do what we say. We investigate. Today, I have Stephen Doherty here. So, Stephen, say welcome.
How's everybody doing?
So, I know it's been a couple weeks, but we have a fun topic. I think a lot of people in information security are feeling right now. And I know I've had a lot of private conversations back and forth with folks. And it's not like about some new fancy malware. It's talking about burnout in how the industry is feeling burnt out with a lot of things, how processes are broken, how it's crazy times in the industry. So we will be talking about burnout. Steve, I know you and we've talked a good bit on that topic. I know I've burned out at least 2 times in my career. You've also mentioned you wanted to kind of talk on this topic too. So how about I'll go ahead and pass off to you and let you kick it off from here.
Yeah, so obviously this is a topic near and dear to my heart. Being a high intensity individual and a high performer, it comes with its consequences. And that in particular is burnout. And my whole thing with it is nobody really prepares you for the way burnout rears its head and kind of the way it comes about. I think the one thing with burnout that I think a lot of people can agree upon is that its onset is actually very formulaic. There's a few things that, at least for me, and I think resonate with a lot of other people that signify it. For me, was the inability to control situations, and then the emotions, stress, anger, and everything that came along with that stays in your system, that goes from your work to affecting everything else in your life. And even when you work for a great organization and they're looking out for you, you still never really get over it until you deal with it yourself, until you seek help, go to therapy, maybe make a change of lifestyle to do those things. Because even if you do kind of fix, the work issue is causing the burnout, the scars are still there until you address them.
And I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize when they go through this is I've had this talk with so many folks. I'll talk about their experiences. And as you said, you nailed it. It's very formulaic. A lot of times it comes down from like a job where you might have processes that start breaking and it's just not going smooth. For you, you were saying it was something that it had to do with a lot of control. And for me, it was very similar too,
Hmm.
where like if something didn't go how I had it in my head, it would just irk the ever living shit out of me.
Yep.
And like when you go and see a lot of cyber fraud, or when you're seeing a lot of people being hurt, I know for me it was like, why are you not doing the thing to make people hurt less? And I know for me that was a lot of my triggers, was just kind of walking through and realizing, hey, there really is this bad thing happening. The organization itself could be very supportive, could be very much doing that, but you also have to add a level of being able to do some of that inner work on your own just to be able to move through them. You have these situations that are happening, but until you're actually working through it and hitting it head on, there's not going to be a success. Do you kind of walk through some of that from your side?
Yeah. I worked for a great organization that, I was doing great things for, particularly in helping victims of business email compromise was, my job. It was rapid response. It was dealing with these things in real time to get money back for victims, make sure companies stay afloat, make sure individuals don't go homeless, all sorts of the nasty things we see, cybercrime and how it directly affects victims. You and I both were on the front lines of working that. Right. My organization, I kind of saw where my burnout was coming from or when I was really kind of in the throes of it. And they did a great job of, hey, let's have you do a different project for a little bit. And it was great. I loved being able to pivot and do that. That was one of the great things about the agency that I worked for, that they allowed me to do that. And I was able to grow a lot from there. But eventually it became time for me to go back to the fire. Right. And it's the same thing like when people take a vacation, right? And they come back from vacation and they almost feel worse because now they have all that work to catch up on. They have guilt that they took the vacation, all those sorts of things. It was the same thing. So when I came back to the project of working directly with victims in rapid response, I was so just kind of shell shocked from it all that when I came back, I was ineffectual. And being ineffectual in terms of getting that control, getting the outcomes we want, particularly for victims, it just wasn't there. And it made it even worse. It just added more to the pile of, that I can't control the situation or the outcomes for victims and individuals or companies or businesses. I'm not doing this job the way I feel is up to par with my own capabilities, and it just kept adding to this just emotional distress. So now you have that burnout from work, and then after the fact, you now have this emotional distress that carries on into your family life, your personal life, to where you go to seek solace, and you can't get that solace anymore because that's still following you, and it haunts you, literally haunts you.
Hmm.
And even now, after, we both have stepped away in certain fashions and have come back with Rex Field, and I feel like you and I have framed it in a much better way to not only be a lot more effectual, but to also condition ourselves to not let it spin out of control or affect us in such a way. Once you kind of get to that point where you can't relax, you can't rest, you start seeking alternative, unhealthy methods to do so. We see it all the time in our industries where people turn to things like drinking that really just make the problem worse. They don't make it better by any means. It's just adding more fuel to that fire.
Yeah, and with that, I want to kind of cover a couple things that you kind of walk through. So for the one, that guilt where you're not able to do more sucks because it's something where you're now watching somebody getting ready to lose their house, lose their home, lose hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you feel a sense of responsibility and a sense of pride in order to try and help them get that back. Because when you're working through a lot of that, it's something where it's like, yes, that person getting ready to lose their home, but I can help them out to try and prevent them to lose their home. I know for me, I can help that person, so I'm gonna go do the thing to help them.
Hmm.
When you're not able to help them, you straight up feel like a failure. You feel like you absolutely failed. You feel like you're not good enough. And those are uncomfortable feelings to be able to work through. When I burned out, it was a lot of just coming to terms with a lot of those uncomfortable feelings, that just that inadequacy, they just weren't good enough. And when you're feeling that in your job and you're not feeling that level of fulfillment, that very much perpetuates through your family, through your house, through everything else. Because again, if you're going and feeling that for 8 hours a day, your body remembers that. Your body remembers that feeling, and you come back to interacting with your family. Those emotions don't just magically shut off and go away. They continuing to go back in with your family. Like I know for me, there was a lot of times where I would be frustrated with the family. I would just very much disconnect and not want to be with the family because again, I'm like, I feel these bad emotions. And I know like my wife and I, we've had very many discussions on this, is that when we were in the thick of it, a lot of times when those things were happening, it's just any discussion you would take personally, anytime you would be very defensive, and you're feeling just that inadequacy in general and still working through it. But again, it's something where that's very much a case that nobody really talks about on that burnout.
Yep. Yep. And, that burnout then leads again, it's a snowballing effect. I'm going to touch on a couple different things with that snowball. And one thing you touched upon, which I was very much guilty of in the throes of my burnout and after, and then when I tried to get back into it, was a self isolation. It would just be, I would be just again, I mean, to overuse the word burnout. I was so burnt out that I had no other capacity to do anything. So I would just self isolate and self medicate, and that causes so many more problems, right?
Hmm.
You know, you're not being social, you're not getting that. And a lot of this to me comes down to sort of the idea around dopamine, right? And you're not getting the good you need to heal the bad. And then even when you do get the wins at work, they just weren't there, or it wasn't having the same desired effect after a while because the bad outweighed the good so much more. And so, when we would get good wins, when we would save people money, when we would, solve a case, things like that, it just didn't have the same impact that it previously had because you just have such this negative debt of emotion and baggage, and it again, it snowballs and you can't climb out of it.
Yeah, and that's absolutely the case because again, when you're dealing with somebody who has been hit with a scam, hit with a crime, hit with a romance scam, you're dealing with them on their 100% absolute worst day ever.
Hmm.
And with the way a lot of things happen in the industry, with the way a lot of different cases are going through, very much that I agree with you, is that you don't get, not that you need that dopamine hit, but you're not seeing those wins. And it becomes very discouraging of pushing that rock up the hill where you're sitting there pushing the rock up and everything. It's like I'm kind of sitting there just pushing up and it's just not working.
Yeah. I love my
Yep.
Sisyphus
Yep.
allegory. That's still one of my favorite. Like just the way we relate our work, and really anybody who's experiencing burnout should have that same mentality, or does have that same mentality regarding it.
Right. Yeah. And it's something where, yeah, when it comes to Brown, like I said, that's very much what it feels like in the
On
moment.
a positive note, get emotional support kit.
Yes, emotional support cats are definitely good. So, hi, Chloe.
He always likes to make an appearance.
And Chloe's like, whatever, I'm on camera again.
Yep, but get an emotional support cat. They help.
Absolutely. So then now kind of pivoting sides for where once you kind of identified that you were in that burnout phase, what did that look like of trying to do that self-healing and how can I get to a better state? Like what did that beginning look like? And then we'll give some practical tips at the end for like, okay, if you're in this state, here's the things that you can do to kind of move through there.
For me, I knew I had hit rock bottom, in a lot of different ways, emotionally, physically, the way I was self-medicating with things like alcohol, and I just knew that my life had become unmanageable because of all of it, and so I needed to start making things better and doing it just one thing at a time. There was never a way where you can say, okay, these are all my problems. I'm going to tackle them all now. No, you need to start with what's priority. And that is getting yourself in the right mindset where you're not relying on substances to make yourself feel better or escape or numb the pain. Then you need to start getting yourself right physically so that your body's ready to go. You can deal with that. Um, you know, that harm and everything that's going on in your body. And then that relates to your mind and getting yourself mentally healthy in that state. And there's a lot of things that you can do for it. So first it's realizing, what the problem is, the things you're doing to make the problem worse, and the things you need to do to make the problem better. Do them in manageable chunks. So you're not trying to solve all of the world's problems in one fell swoop. Realize it's a process. Realize you can't control everything, and stop trying to force the agenda and live life on life's terms. I know these are a little bit kind of innocuous phrases, but when you break them down and look at them, it works to do it that way and to identify the problem. And you and I, in our both our working relationship and our personal relationship, I come to you and say, hey, this is something where, I'm having some issues today, or, I'm in a little bit of a mental funk here. Just work with me for a little bit. I'm just open and honest about it, where before I hid everything. So kind of it starts with that just idea of honesty, I guess.
I know that there's also been times, again, to kind of talk on our personal relationship where like I've been angry and pissed off about something. You're just like, dude, reframe it. You're fine. And like I know I can be very much a negative person when it comes to like certain things like not going my way. But you're like, hey, no, just go look at this. So it's very, very much a reciprocal loop on that and everything, where it's like we both helped each other in one way, shape, or form in a good way. So
Yeah. So that's
yeah.
part of the thing. And I hope other people find that
Hmm.
in their careers and their professional life, because it makes so much difference. And that's one of the things where I think you and I, when we took over Rexfield, was our philosophy and mantra to start out, where we never wanted to hit a point where burnout is a thing again.
Hmm.
We want to do this in a manageable, healthy way, because the way it was framed to me, and something I still have to keep in mind, is that when we're working well, when we're feeling good, when we're doing things right, we are that much better at helping people. So, as long as we keep ourselves right, work on ourselves, when these problems come in, we can deal with them in a much clearer way. It's not clouded with anger or resentment or anything like that. We know that, hey, we set those boundaries, we keep ourselves healthy, and then we can help people that much better.
Hmm.
Or that much better.
And very much to that vein, reflecting on a couple things. So if you're flying, they always say put your mask on first. And the reason for that is if you're deprived of oxygen, you can't breathe and help somebody else. So, because of that, when you're in that scenario, it's always kind of important to kind of take care of yourself so that, yes, you can be a better assistant and help somebody else too.
Hmm.
So again, always remember that is just put your own mask on first, kind of take that time for yourself there. The second piece, and this was kind of from another podcast I was listening to that is called Calm AF, in that when you kind of take that step back, the concept is that you're not going to do more in order to get more done. The concept is actually doing less to get more done. And the reason for that is because when you're doing less, you're taking those breaks, you're taking that intent to kind of take things a little slower. You're very much trying to take things from a different angle. And with that, you're able to get more stuff done more methodically and with better intent. So, like, I know the days where I'm feeling better and stuff, where I'm like, okay, I had my rest, I play a video game, I took that time. Those days go better in general. I'll use this morning as a great example and everything. Is that I got a bunch of stuff work done this morning. My daughter came down, wanted to go drive RC cars and everything. So instead of being like, no, I'm going to sit here and crank this workout, I'm like, no, let's go drive RC cars. And I'm in a much better headspace to get the rest of my work done. And taking those breaks is something that's very important. And likewise, when you were initially in that burnout phase, kind of that internal self assessment, if you start feeling guilty for taking a break, and if you start feeling that when you step away, that's a very early sign that something needs to change. Survivor's guilt that plays into it, where you're like, well, I can go do this, I can go do this, I can go do this. But it's something where you need to be able to kind of take that break and take that rest. There was another book that I really love that really kind of changed my mindset on just how I work. The name of the book is called Slow Productivity by Cal Newport, and what he did was actually looked at the information security field pre and post COVID and was reflecting back on just how do you measure metrics. And what he found is that in our field, like, there is very few metrics that actually drive the needle, and it's more just data for data. And he also found that a lot of times with a lot of organizations, there's the constant sake of being busy just to be busy. That just constantly leads to absolute burnout. Because when you have something that pops in when you're constantly busy, like if your cup is operating at 100%, it's going to spill over. But you're able to get a lot more going where you're able to have a better nervous system kind of oscillate from there. So I know for me, like, that was a lot of what led into my burnout was just, hey, I'm trying to do too much, trying to do all the things. And by trying to do all the things, you do none of the things. So,
Yeah. Right. My thing is my favorite kind of thing to relate this to is the meme of the dog and the fires all around him, and he's like, "This is fine. It's fine." I feel like that's kind of you know, for burnout, a great illustration as everything's burning around you. And then just look at that picture and you realize he doesn't really have an out, right? He doesn't have anywhere to go. He's penned himself in with all that fire around him. And so if you don't have that out, you don't have that sort of steam valve. And whatever it is, if it's a hobby, it's exercise, it's family, it's cooking, it's all of the above, right? You need to have that. And I feel like you and I both approached the threshold of us not having that and being penned in by the fire that, maybe some were created by outside means, but some of the fires, especially I can speak for myself, I was creating myself. I wasn't putting them out there. I was just like, oh, more fire around it. This is fine. This is fine. I need to step away. I need to get out and also build out your responsibilities with other people around that can also take on those responsibilities. So you have somebody to lean on because, you know, going in this world with, an individual's mindset is great for a lot of things. But when it comes to burnout, there's no one to take that weight off your shoulders. And it just, then that thought and feeling in and of itself makes the burnout even worse. So these things, again, the snowball, effect of burnout and all of the ancillary effects from it. Serious thing, man. Serious
yep.
thing.
Yep. And I know so much in like work environments when you don't have somebody that you can rely on. A lot of that comes to too much work being taken on and not being scaled accordingly. So that leaves a lot of people feeling the need to keep plates spinning in the air for different things. And when you're sitting there juggling 6, 7, 8 different roles and you have 14 plates sitting there spinning in the air, yeah, you can go ahead and have those them spinning, but like, can you go get a drink of water if you're sitting there spinning plates? And the answer is no. And the reality is that sometimes you have to be able to let the plates fall so that they can be picked up and fixed. And there's a concept in Japanese culture that when something breaks, it's not a bad thing. It's actually a concept where you can go ahead and repair it, and you repair it with usually like melted gold. And with that, it's to kind of show that yes, there are imperfections. Yes, things do break, and they can be rebuilt and restructured and be stronger in the end. So now that we've kind of walked through some of those things, from here's how we identified the burnout, here's where we kind of start walk through it. What are some things that you've implemented that have helped you stay out of that burnout cycle that you can kind of that you can pass to the listeners and viewers to kind of help be able to stay sane in this crazy world?
Uh, Little thing called the serenity prayer. Grant me the serenity is a great thing to have. It allows me to take a pause, slow down, to remember that sometimes the best action is inaction and not try to force things. And to always remember that, you know, you're showing up is 80%, 90% of what you have to do. So put yourself in the best mindset to show up, right? And do what you need to do to keep yourself healthy mentally, physically, and emotionally to do that. I found myself in such a rut where I knew, I wasn't sleeping, the insomnia was real, the anxiety, depression, all of it was hitting me, and it made me feel so bad that I knew I wouldn't be able to operate or function in the way that I thought would be best to do the job. So then it's keeps getting piled more and more on. So give yourself grace. Know that you can't control everything. Don't try to force everything and take those pauses on the forefront. On the other side of that, give yourself the ability to rest and relax as well. So, those are a couple things I like to touch on pretty much on a daily basis to say, hey, you got this. But look out for yourself, and that'll help you look out for others around you.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. And by being able to do that and looking out for yourself, it might sound selfish, but it's the best thing that you can do for somebody else is taking care of your own needs, taking care of your mental health, taking a walk, eating healthy. And with that being said, it's not like, oh, some magic pill, everything's gonna be fine. There is also that sense that, okay, you will more than likely feel a lot of negative emotions. And even kind of taking that step back and just kind of listening to them and kind of taking that meter and be like, okay, what's this negative emotion trying to tell me? Is it trying to tell me that everything in this world sucks, it's horrible, it's bad? Or is it trying to teach me that, hey, the situation I'm in is something that can change? And while this is a really negative experience, how can I kind of make that into something better? And this might sound a little cliche, but anytime that you have a big massive fire, there's a lot of destruction, there's a lot of hurt, and especially if you have a forest fire, it's going to go ahead and destroy everything, and after that it's all black and charred and burned. But after that fire, you also see some of the most beautiful plants that are coming out of it because they're kind of growing from that experience. So
Hmm.
again, for those who have been through burnout, for those who have made it and kind of made it to the other side, they end up 1,000 times stronger, 1,000 times more resilient and stuff. So, Stephen, virtual fist bump. Good job, proud of you. So,
Same,
yeah,
same.
I get. All right. So with that, that is a heavy episode, man. But like I said, hopefully it helps some folks with burnout getting through that, and kind of being able to move through that wonderful experience.
Yeah. So it feels
Any,
good to talk about it. Feels good to get it
Mhm.
off your chest. Everybody take a deep breath. Thank you for listening, and we hope this definitely helps.
Yep, definitely sounds good. And with that, we are officially out. Rexfield Investigates. Well, signing off. Take care, everybody.